Lesson C1, Charting and Time Series Fundamentals. Topic 2, Different Sources of Time Series Data. The learning objectives for this topic are to understand the concept of a historian data source, to understand the different historian sources in Ingenuity. We have enterprise historians, the calculation historian, the alias historian, constants, manual data inputs, and the signal generator historian. So the concept of historians or a historian is an important concept in Eigen Ingenuity. It's like the concept of a shop, where you have lots of different shops, but they have fundamentally the same properties, where you can go, you can buy something, there's a till, there's an exchange of money, and there's certain things that you know will happen. But there only exists specific instances of the general term shop. There's a newspaper shop, there's a car shop, there's a furniture shop. So here we're saying historians are the general class of time series data sources. Historians are time series data sources, and they present data in a format that can be trended. So that means every point has a timestamp, a value, and a quality. And this is analogous to the OPC standard as well. Time series data sources, historians support time series functions such as getting the current value, getting values in a time range, getting the average, minimum, maximum of a set of data, and also providing raw or interpolated data. In Ingenuity, we have the following 6 historians. We have enterprise historians. Each one of these will have their own driver, such as OSIsoft Aspentech IP21, InfluxDB, Cognite CDF. We have a calculation historian, which allows you to create virtual time series by applying functions on top of other time series data. We have an alias historian, which allows you to make virtual time series more permanent by giving it a name so that others can find it. Then we have constants, so you can enter just a constant value such as a limit. We have manual data, so you can enter a set of manual data, say from a spreadsheet. And we have a signal generator historian, which generates known functions, repeatable functions such as constant sine waves, cosine, ramps, square waves, saw waves, and repeatable random functions.
To use time series data, we need to address it with the historian and the tag name.
So for example, if we wanted to access data from pi, the historian might be configured with the name pi, and then we have slash and the tag name. If we want to make this into a calculation, we would wrap it in the function and address the calculation historian first. So we call the calc/mul to do a multiplication, then the tag name pi/20pic1024.pv, and then we'd multiply it by a constant, say if we wanted to convert from bar to psi, in this case 14.5. We could then save this calculation as an alias under the name hpsep_pressure.psia, and if we wanted to address a value, we say value slash and then the number. So let's look at this in some examples.
So let's look at a tag from an enterprise data historian. Here we're going to use InfluxDB, and we've got our demo system set up, and we're going to use demo tag demo_02 pi101.pv.
I've made a page with 4 trends that we're going to fill as we go through this example. So first thing we're going to do is search for our tag name. There we are, the HP separator pressure. And we'll add that to our trend. So here we can see that we've addressed this tag with the name of the historian at the start and then the tag name.
Let's look at an example of the calculation historian now based on that tag. We want to convert it from bar to psi, so we need to multiply it by 14.5. So what we're going to do is wrap it in a mul function and multiply it by 14.5, and to do that we also need to address the calculation historian, so we have calc/.
So here's the tag that we've added to the trend before, and I'm going to now add it to my basket. I'm going to go to a new trend and open up search, and I'm going to go to the calculation tab, and we'll build a calculation, and we're going to do a multiplication. So here I can drag the tag from my basket and multiply it by the constant 14.5 and add that to the trend. And there we now have a calculation, and you can see that we've got the calculation historian called, and then the function, and then we wrap the tag from the other historian. Let's change the colour of that, make it different. The issue with my calculation is it only exists in that particular chart where I created it. If I wanted someone else to use it, I'd either have to send them the formula or give them a link to my chart and they would have to copy it. To make it available to everyone, I need to create an alias for this calculation. An alias is like a bookmark for a certain calculation. So here we're going to use the aliases historian. To create an alias, I just right click on my calculation in the legend and I click add alias. And I'm going to give this the title HP sep pressure .psi A for absolute and add. So that alias is now created and I can search for it. And now we go into our new trend here and select the alias tab and search for the new tag we've created. There it appears in the list of results. So now I can select that tag and have it plotted and I get that exact calculation.
Constants are added to a trend using the value historian, which is always available.
Let's look at an example here. We have another empty trend, and to add a constant we don't actually even need to type the word value. I just type in the constant I want to add and press enter. And the adding the value historian is handled for me there. So adding values is dead simple. Now let's look at adding manual data. Now manual data stores the values in the trend itself. So this is useful if you want to paste in data from a spreadsheet to create a one-off trend where you're not connected to a live data source. Or you can snapshot live data into a local copy so that it can never be changed and it's an exact record of what you looked at. One important point to note is that local data sets cannot be used in calculations because they're only available within the local instance of a trend. They can't actually be accessed by the calculation historian, which is a server-side piece of code. So here what I'm going to do is take my alias calculation from previously. I'm going to right click on it and say copy to local trend. And now I've made a local copy of that and I'm going to move it to this other chart and just delete it from this one for the ease of it. So now if we go in and have a look at this data, when we search for it we see we have under the manual data tab we've got the list of all the raw points, and here we have the timestamps and the values pasted in.
The signal generator historian is a built-in historian that's always available. It generates well-known functions such as sine, square and ramp. It's addressed using the siggen/function name.
Here I've made some examples. I'm going to use the pop-out trend feature to bring this up full screen. And here you can see I've made some examples of square waves, cosines, sines, random numbers and saw waves. The format of a siggen tag is the code for the type of wave. For example, square is SQ. Then you have the amplitude. In this case, for the example of the square wave, we've got 1, then we've got the offset, and then we've got the time period that it's going to repeat over. We're going to go into this in more detail in the next learning pathway, in pathway 3. It's a more advanced function, but it can be extremely useful, particularly the saw wave, which you can use as a ramp function to turn a single value for the day, for example a forecast, into a rising total throughout the day to give you the expected production at this point in the day to meet the projected total forecast by the end of the day.